Today I'm going to be comparing the 8bitdo wireless controller versus this Dinofire controller for the Nintendo Switch. Now let me go ahead and push the button here to actually get both of these starting to look for the Switch itself. I've got this one red flashing and this one is green flashing, as you can see. Both of these controllers have the exact same issue, and that is neither of them can actually be used to turn on the Switch when it is in sleep mode. So they will just run like this until you push the power button or until they stop, as the Dinofire did here. This 8bitdo one is still searching, but it will eventually stop as well. It will not actively connect unless the Switch is actually turned on. So this is the downside to both of these controllers that both of these controllers share. The 8bitdo one does search for longer just because it's designed for a variety of devices, so it might think that it needs to search for a longer period of time than this Dinofire generic controller will. Let me go ahead and push this power button here to turn on the Switch. Okay, as you can see here, it did eventually time out and stop, so I'm going to push the button here on the 8bitdo controller, and you'll see that it should connect here in a second. And we are connected as number one. So now I'm going to push the button and go into that, and now I'm going to hold down the home button here on the Dinofire and connect it to the Switch as well. So both of those are now connected. This one first controller, this one second. Main thing about the Dinofire, that's this one here, in comparison to the 8bitdo, is that you can easily see all of the letters on the buttons on this Dinofire generic one. Whereas on the 8bitdo one, you really can't see those buttons. The letters on the buttons are in dark black, and they're on the back here. They're not actually on the buttons themselves, so that does make it harder to see. The other thing is about this Dinofire is that the joysticks are actually in the same position that they are on the Joy-Cons. So that is a nice bonus to the Dinofire, whereas the 8bitdo has them down at the bottom. Now the handle on the 8bitdo is much more comfortable than the Dinofire. It's much easier to hold this 8bitdo controller here in my left hand than it is holding this Dinofire in my right, just because this bottom part sticks out so much more on the 8bitdo than it does on this Dinofire controller. Overall, both of these are incredibly durable controllers. They both work properly once you get the Switch turned on, so no issues there at all. One last thing is both of these do use USB-C to charge. The battery life on this Dinofire is about 10 to 15 hours, whereas the battery life on the 8bitdo is 20 to 25 hours. Again, that's going to vary depending on how old your controllers are. Overall, both of these are good controllers. Truthfully, when comparing these two, I prefer the one that actually has the Joy-Cons in the same spot. However, because of the uncomfortableness of the Dinofire, if I had to choose one that I was going to be gaming a long time with, I would choose the 8bitdo controller just because of how much easier it is to grip the handles rather than the Dinofire is much harder to actually hold on to.